Open day, huh? Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, how has this been for you? Have you, especially, I guess, being the strength and conditioning guy, and you're so accustomed to having guys, I guess, face to face and hands on, have you had to, I guess, email them what you want them to do, or how's the process worked for you?
Oh, that's exactly what we had to do. It's difficult. It's a big change up. There's an art and a science to being a strength and conditioning coach, and the science is pretty easy in terms of sending it out in an email of the workouts, the sets and reps, and the exercise you want to do. But not being able to physically watch and spot guys and get feedback from them in terms of what they need makes things very, very challenging, and just the whole idea of the communication with, the different technologies that are available and things like that was a big adjustment for us. But I think, we did as good a job as could be done with the situation that we're under.
Are they sending you videos to chart progress, or how is that going? Because, I guess, the guys who might have a little tendency to retain water you might want to see it a little bit more.
Well, what it turns out that no matter what, whether the players are on campus or they're at home or whatever, it's a voluntary off-season program. And so you really can't require guys to do specific things. Like, we ask the guys to send back notification of their body weight and their that they had the number of days that they worked out in the week, and that was more for some of the guys have contractual bonuses structure, and some guys want to be paid, be compensated for their workouts like they would be if they're doing it here in Metairie. But in terms of getting video and stuff back, that it's really difficult. Some guys were good at that and they could send it back if they wanted to. So I get videos. Mainly you get the guys that want to send, they want to show you what they're doing, and so they're excited about it. So I would imagine if you're a guy that might be, a little heavier than you should be at this time, you're probably not going to send a video. So, you're gonna put that aside. So, the videos that I did receive from some of the players were, mainly a case of where they just want to show you. Justin Hardy would send me videos every week, and he's working hard. He's working, doing all this stuff. He want to show me all that. So I could expect that. And then there's a couple other guys who would send some videos, but most of it was just a case of sending me, how many days they've worked out, any questions that they had, or if they had some issues with equipment, if there's anything we could do to help them try to obtain some things that they needed to complete the workouts. That was it. So it was kind of sight unseen, so to speak.
When you do see, is there a fairly strict adherence to what you're hoping to, or are you having to look at some of these and telling guys, like, I don't know if you ought to be doing that?
Well, you see the biggest thing where you see stuff where you're worried about, if they should be doing something, is some of the things that get posted on social media. So they're not sending that back to me, but then, if you, like my Charles Bird and Rob Wenning will follow a lot of guys on social media, and they would send me a message of, hey, well, look at this, see what this guy's doing or what that guy's doing. And every once in a while you reach out to them, but that's no different than any other off season where we'll get some crazy stuff that guys do. But our guys, what we try to do as a program is bring in guys that are hard workers, guys that are intelligent, guys who are passionate about, their sport and about being football players and passionate about the game. And so for the most part, that allows us to have quite a bit of trust in these guys, and especially our returning players. We know what they're all about. We hope that the new guys that you bring in, both veterans and rookies, follow that same pattern. And so, it's a leap of faith, so to speak, but I think it's something where we had an educated guess, knowing the type of guys we have on our team.
I'm curious.
Did you have to create some kind of off the wall stuff for guys who didn't have access to equipment or the typical strength training stuff that they would usually have?
Well, what we did, which would be different than, when we write workouts that are going to be done here in our facility, we write it specifically for all the equipment that we have available. Not having 100% understanding of what everyone had available at every time, because it changes sometimes. There are some guys that were able to get into a gym, maybe even when the gyms and things might have been closed in their area, maybe they have their own workout gym in their house, or they had a friend or someone they could use, or they could get into a gym that maybe they had some access to. But you never know exactly what guys have. We reached out to all of our players and we asked them kind of a general idea what they had. And then when I designed the workouts, I do everything on Microsoft Excel. And so what I did was I put together a workout that had some drop-down lists and some categories. And so there's some different things that you could do, barbells, dumbbells, exercise bands, cable. So that, guys could kind of tailor the workout a little bit, their body weight stuff, in different variations for every single exercise we did. So the guy could look through that and go, okay, I can do this in this situation. I can do this. Or, sometimes the guy might reach back out to me and say, hey, how can I do this? And I would say, well, here's a substitute for you. So I wouldn't say we did anything that you would look at and go, whoa, that's, revolutionary, but we just had to have a lot more variation in how guys were going to perform the exercise that we wanted, because there's certain motions that you are training to be a football player, and sometimes there's a million different ways you can do that, and so we just tried to purvey that to our team, and so the players could pick that. And I tried to guide them in that, so that if they clicked that little drop down list, they would have a choice of 10 or 15 different things that they might be able to do, sometimes fewer, sometimes more, but they could tailor to them. And as far as I'm aware, I'm sure I'm going to get more information once we eventually get back together, but I think the things worked out pretty well for guys, and some of the guys, would have someone they were working with, and they would let me know and what they were doing, and so you just do the best you can.
I realize it's kind of impossible to answer without actually seeing the guys in person, but I imagine as a football player, you're trying to build a certain physique that might be tough to accomplish without like access to weights. Like if you had to kind of talk guys through maybe some, trepidation around that.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm old enough to remember that there was a guy in the NFL who had a pretty good physique, and the story on him was all he did was push-ups and sit-ups, and Herschel Walker. And so, if you go back to that, there's a lot of stuff that you can do, because you're also dealing with, NFL football players. They are the top percentage of genetic specimens in our country, or, in the world. And so these guys can do some pretty spectacular things with some basic equipment if they're willing to work hard. There are situations, I'm sure, that guys created dumbbells with milk jugs full of water or sand and those kind of things. You hear those type of stories. I didn't hear anything specifically from our players, but guys find ways to do stuff. And like I said, it goes back to just if you got the right guys and they're hard workers, they're gonna find a way. And we'll find out when they return if we were successful or not. But that's no different than any year.
Going back to kind of what you were talking about a little earlier, I was wondering, when you see some of those workouts Alvin Kamara post on social media, where he's doing some of that off the wall stuff, what's your take on that? And, what are your thoughts?
Well, it depends on what you're asking me that Alvin's doing. Some of his balance stuff with some of that, it's interesting. And, there's some good things that guys are doing. And then, there's some times where you see, there was a video a year or two ago or I guess it was a year ago, maybe, of Alvin, and he was carrying a bunch of weight and pulling a truck and stuff like that. And I got a little nervous on that, you know, you're like, hey, that looks a little scary. So let's make sure we don't hurt ourselves here. But, you know, when you have players like that, a lot of times the test for our players is, you know, hold them back, making sure they're not doing something. You know, I don't worry about what they're doing unless it looks a little bit unsafe. And, but you know, again, if you smart guys are going to know what they're capable of doing, and again, you've got to trust them a little bit. But you know, you get ideas from players too. I mean, our guys will come in and they'll have something they like to do, and I'll look at it and I'll go, wow, that's a great idea. We're going to incorporate some of that stuff, and it's you know, sometimes it's give and take a little bit too. So. If a player comes to me and they're really passionate about something they did in the off season or something they've seen, and I think it works well for them, I'd be foolish not to try to study it and get an idea. Or maybe it's like, okay, I'm going to put my little twist on that we did. So, you know, you got to constantly be willing to evolve in your approach. And these are, like I said, professional football players, and these guys do this for a living. They know they have a short period of time to do it, and so if they've got something they think works, it's important for us to continue it.
Does anybody else have
mentioned earlier? Yeah, I've got one. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. When you mentioned earlier that sometimes things are brought to your attention and you use the word crazy, but then you also said it, you know, that happens every off season. So were there more instances or any different instances this off season than others, you know, where you saw stuff and you hadn't seen before?
I would say less. I think because, you know, you have to understand, obviously, the situation in our country. In other off-season programs, like, you know, the off-season, I only get them for a short period of time, regardless of what the situation, you know, in the perfect world, when we don't have a pandemic going on, guys are going to be done from the end of the season. They're going to be on their own from the end of the season until, you know, the middle of April. And so that doesn't mean that they're sitting around doing nothing. These guys maybe take a week or two and they get away, and then they're training again and they start doing some things. And so, and in the vast majority of them are going to have coaches, trainers, someone that they're working with, maybe a variety of people they're working with over the period of time that they're away from us. And you'll get some different things. You know, I think you do, to some degree, you have to wade through a little bit of, I think people out, like in what we might call the private sector, are in a competition to build a following. And so, like, social media creates this, you know, no one likes to watch a guy go in and do a set of squats or a set of bench press and, you know, basic exercise. They want to see some kind of crazy version of, and not crazy in a bad way, but just some kind of unique thing. And so people try to invent some stuff that's going to get them clicks on their social media or followers or whatever. And that's totally understandable, because, you know, their business is they're not making their money just from training one player. They've got to bring other people in. And so some of that excitement, they watch an Alvin Kamara, one of these great athletes, do stuff. And, you know, other people want to try it, so they'll come to that trainer. So you'll see some things. Well, this year was different because, you know, those guys didn't have access to gyms, and guys didn't have access to some of these trainers that would do some things. Or if they did, I don't know that they could necessarily post it on social media, because, you know, depending on where they're at, it might be illegal. You know, I mean, more not illegal, but against the rules of the state or the municipality that they're in. So you didn't see as much as far as I know, as compared to other years. I think guys were, you know, training more in secret than anything now over the last few months.
Hey, Dan, if you guys, I'm sure you have, but have you given thought to how you're going to orient like training whenever the facility is able to be back open up, and how you're going to be able to do it safely, just with the guidelines in place?
Well, I mean, from a safety, from an illness standpoint, we have very strict guidelines in place, looking specifically at the coronavirus, and our whole entry program into the league has done a lot of work on that, and which is continually evolving. So we get new updates from the league about how we should do things, and our medical staff has been outstanding in their hard work to try to figure out things. So from a safety standpoint, I'm 100% sure that we will do everything that we can to keep guys safe that way. From a training standpoint, there's going to be an evaluation process when players return, and we're going to be ready for some guys to be, farther along than other guys, which again, it isn't necessarily always different. One thing that I have experienced here is that we run a fairly unique program. Our football program, the way we practice, is challenging. We get a lot of reps in. We do a lot of coaching. Players that come from other teams maybe aren't used to the volume of work that we would do in a typical practice. And so they have to come up to speed. And obviously the rookies aren't necessarily prepared for that, so they have to come up to speed. So you have to have a plan for all of that. We are a free weight Olympic style weightlifting program. There's players that haven't done a power clean or anything like that since they're in college, or maybe never have done it. So you always have to be ready to individually bring guys up to speed. So we'll do that as it is, and we'll see we'll work closely with our medical staff, and we'll, determine, are our guys in shape? If they're not, what do we need to do to bring them up to catch up? And we'll go from there. But you just have to, you have a plan, you work the plan, and you plan for the unexpected, and that's a motto that I've kind of went through. The guy I worked for in college had that motto, and I think that's going to be specifically true, or especially true in this situation.
And how about the facility itself? Like you have to prep everything to be farther away than it normally is, and have like limited guys in to do their exercises. And
there's going to be some rules on that, and that's evolving a little bit. But I think the one thing that we are very lucky to have is, if you've ever seen our weight room and the setup that we have a very large weight room. We have a lot of equipment, and I was walking around just yesterday looking at it, and basically, if you put one of our players on each one of our stations, so to speak, they're going to be socially distanced as it is. We allow basically a 10 by 10 area per player when the building was built. So that allows us to have, a lot of players without having to be smashed into one area. Now, some teams have a lot smaller weight room than we have. And then we're right at the outs. I walk out one door from one side, I go into our indoor facility, and we can utilize that for some of our training. And I walk out the other side of the weight room, and I'm on our grass practice fields. And so if we needed to do that, we can spread things out, and we can handle a lot larger number. We probably could physically handle a larger number than what the league will eventually allow us to do it at one time. And so there'll be some changes a little bit, and maybe the number of lifting groups we have available during, our preseason practices and then in season. But from a coaching standpoint, you prefer not to have too many guys at one time anyways. And so, it's going to work out. But like I said, I think we're well prepared, with the size of our, just our space that we have here in our facility with our weight room and the way it's set up. Our locker room is large and spacious. Our training room was just redone a couple years ago. It's large and spacious. Our team meeting rooms and all that. So we're going to be well prepared for it, whatever we have to do.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
Not unless he wants to talk about Thomas Morstead's pull-ups.
I just had one, but
Thomas is one of those guys that he is always going to keep you on your toes with the things that he does, and he's always exciting to have. And he's been corresponding. We've been corresponding back and forth, and he, I always tell him, Thomas, the day that I have to worry about what you're doing or how hard you're working is the day I probably need to retire as a strength and conditioning coach, because it's going to be a bad thing if I got to worry about him, and we got a number of players like that I don't have to worry about. So it's great to be able to have that trust in your guys. I know he's going to be ready to go.
Hey, J-Mac, it's Brett. I just had one more, and I'm sorry I'm having bandwidth issues, so my video's down.
Sure.
And I might have missed this, but I was wondering if you could just give us some highlights of what you thought of as the most innovative or unusual workout routines you saw or heard about this off season.
Like I said, I wouldn't say that. I think this, in a situation where you're dealing with what we've had to deal with as a country, and the limitations of facilities and availability, I think you go back to the basics. And I would hope that our players are performing basic exercises that you can do. There's going to be a lot more body weight type exercises. There's going to be a lot of, workout with bands and creating free weights and, like I said, milk jugs full of sand or water or whatever to create some weights, things like that. But, I know that's not the sexy answer of like, I'm sure there's probably somebody pushing cars and all those kind of things. But, I think there's some limitations on what guys could do. And so, guys working in a garage gym or working in a backyard or stuff like that, they're trying to find, ways to just get some resistance. And so I would say that I see more exciting and interesting things other off seasons than I have this year.
And if guys decide, if you hear about more guys deciding they want to try to build out home gyms for future seasons, do you think that would be an overreaction, or do you think that would be a wise thing?
Here's the other problem that we ran into. You go and try to buy, everyone, the gym shut down. Everyone bought all like normal, just regular people, not professional athletes. People bought out, your typical equipment companies, and you couldn't find dumbbells. You couldn't find a lot of things. You go on like Rogue site, which, they're a big, they make a lot of equipment for, home gyms and things like that. You go through and they're sold out. So there was that, try to buy a bicycle. There's a national shortage on road bicycles. I've got an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old, and they need new bikes, and you can't find them. So there's just issues there. It's not only can you not get in a gym, you're trying to build a gym. I'm an NFL strength coach. I don't have a gym at my house because I spend most of my time in the gym here. So when I work out, when we were basically not allowed to come in the facility for a while, I had like a green band that I was able to use, and I have an exercise bike and some stuff like that, and I have my road bike that I did for my own workouts. But I don't know that, who knows what's going to happen in the future. There'll be some people that want to do some stuff, but I think there's also going to be, hopefully this gets straightened out and we don't have to deal with another pandemic, in the near future. And there'll be a lot of yard sales. You'll be able to get some nice gym equipment because people are going to want to go back to their regular gyms, or maybe found out they didn't work out as much as they thought they're going to work out as it is when they got back to their regular life. So there'll be some opportunities there for some cheap equipment, I think.
Great. Thank you very much for your time today, Coach, and we hope to see you soon.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Dan.
you.
All right. See y'all later.